Hello guys, thank you for joining me here today, and today I am going to be talking on listening to other Christians. So this is a very important topic. If you do not listen to other Christians, you could get everything wrong. I'm talking to this guy right now. I'm not going to say his name, although I don't know his real name. But he was talking to, he had, I think I seen it in another video, he had started to criticize a certain church member, which I agree with completely, and I just defended this church member's words, and he started to rail against me, and he will not listen. And it's not because I'm wrong. He said that he would not listen to my words if I paid him or not. Like, he wouldn't listen to them at all, even if I paid him. And I find that's really sad. Number one, I shouldn't have to pay you. I know he said he wouldn't, even if I paid him, but I shouldn't have to pay you for you to even consider looking at my words. But to sit there and say I wouldn't even if you paid me, it's even sadder, because that's saying I'm not going to listen to your words at all. I have no interest in listening to your words. I have absolutely no interest in looking at my doctrine, my dogma, and changing my dogma. I have no interest in that. I'm just going to believe what I want to believe, and you believe what you want to believe. He doesn't even really want a discussion. He just sits there and rails and rails and rails and rails. And it seems like he's trying to do it to aggravate me, which I'm not aggravated by him. I want to tell you guys that you must listen to other Christians' views on the Bible, because yours may be wrong. I sit there and I'll sit there nicely with another, especially a pastor or someone, and I'll sit there and I'll listen and listen and listen and listen and try and take it all in. And if I disagree, I'll have a conversation on that. I'll criticize that belief. And I'm not going to sit there and say it's wrong. I'm going to sit there and say, why is it like this? Why is it like that? I'm not going to sit there and go, your belief is wrong, your belief is wrong, your belief is wrong. I'm going to sit there and ask about the belief. And then after I've asked about it, after they've said everything they need to say about the beliefs, on that certain, say, verse, or that certain scripture, then I'll judge their beliefs on that scripture and say, no, that is wrong, here is what is right. And unless you can prove to me something else is right, or at least give me evidence of why mine is wrong, I'm not going to change my views on that. And that's absolutely fine. God doesn't criticize you or judge you. Sorry, I should say. I like that word, criticize, now. God doesn't judge you based on whether you believe something that really doesn't matter too much about Scripture. Should you sprinkle? Should you like with baptism? Should you sprinkle or should you dunk? Should you go in face first? Should you go in back first? It doesn't matter. I personally prefer the going in the water, dunking in the water, and I don't care whether it's face first or going back first. It doesn't matter to me, and I don't think it matters to God. I do believe, however, the sprinkling thing could matter to God, but I don't think you're unsaved if you sprinkle your head with water, or if you dunk yourself in water. And it don't matter. I don't think it matters, especially if no one's going to baptize you. I don't think it matters whether or not you're baptized by somebody else, or if you're baptized by yourself. But again, those scriptures don't matter to God as much as, say, like, He wants you to know truth, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't know truth, but don't rail against people, don't argue with people, be kind to people, and criticize what they're saying, and give something in place of it. And what God actually looks for is what you believe about salvation. That's basically the whole gist of what you need to understand is understanding salvation. Now, this guy was saying how we need to keep the law and everything, and he's a legalist Christian by the sounds of it. And I'm not a legalist. I'm definitely not a legalist, but I'm definitely not a do whatever you want and God will you're saved. I believe you firstly need to trust in trust in God's words. That's number one. Number two is you need to trust in Jesus with all your that would be number one. Trust in Jesus with all your heart, mind, soul, spirit. And if he tells you to do something, go do it. Now there is a test I would say that you could say it out loud because the devil cannot say it. And just say, Lord, are you come in flesh? Jesus, are you come in flesh? Say, Jesus, are you come in flesh? Because if the voice in your head responds with a yes, then you can go and do what that says. But if it cannot, because Christ is come in flesh, and the devil does not like that, so he will always say no. It doesn't matter whether he can hear me right now saying he will always say no, because he will always say he cannot say. It's like if I asked somebody who, if I was Hebrew and I asked somebody who was German to pronounce Yeshua, I can't even do it. Look, I can't even do it. Yeshua, like I can't do it properly. Then they couldn't do it. It's like the devil won't be able to pronounce or confess that he is coming. Confess that he is coming Christ. He can acknowledge it in his head. He can't confess it. He might say something like, yes. So, ask the Spirit whatever, like if it's ask whatever is in your head to say, Jesus is come in flesh, because the devil cannot say those words. Jesus is come in flesh. He cannot. And so, yeah, he could probably go, yes. So do not listen to a yes. You say, no, I want you to say, Jesus is come in flesh. More so, because he could probably just say yes to it, and you'd be benign to what he's saying. But if you tell him to say, Jesus is coming Christ. Jesus is coming the flesh. Then he won't be able to say it. And that's how I know I am a Christian, because as a Christian I can say that Jesus is come in flesh. It says in 1 John's that I think it's chapter 4 verse 2. Chapter 4 verse 2. And it goes on to say how any spirit that can confess Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God, and any spirit who cannot confess that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And it goes on to say it again and again, and it says, it actually says that that is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard is to come, but yet is already in the world. In Greek, I want to point this out because the guy this guy had argued this. He had argued that the Antichrist had already been. The Antichrist had already been. No, that was another guy. So if that other guy is watching, anyone who believes that the Antichrist has already been is completely false. More so, the Antichrist is a system that is false. Number one, the Antichrist has to call down, can do miracles, and he has to die and come back to life. A physical death and a physical coming back to life. Well, a simulation, obviously, of it, because he won't literally come back to life. But, I'm not too sure on that. Maybe he might be able to. I think that the Antichrist might, if that's the case, if he legitimately dies and comes back to life, what could happen is because it's a position that could happen, and rise him from the dead, it's not him as such. It'll be another spirit. So that guy's going to suffer a fatal wound. And okay, let's just say it's Barack Obama. He hasn't got possession in him right now. He could be shot in the head. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just making an example. Or Bill Clinton, or anyone like that. He'd be shot in the head, or she would be shot in the head, and then come back to, and then would obviously die, and the spirit of that person, their spirit, would go to hell because they're the Antichrist, and they've already done all the stuff that the Antichrist is. I would say at the 3.5 year mark, he dies and would come back to life. Possibly not, but I would say he does. I'd say that is when it happens. And if you want more proof the Antichrist is a person, you go back to what I was saying. Oh, sorry about that. You go back to 1 John chapter 4 verse 2. And it says what I said about the confessing Jesus Christ is come in the flesh, is not of God, is of God, and anyone who cannot confess that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And then it goes on to say, you've heard of the spirit of Antichrist. In the Greek, it has a particular article in his name that refers to a particular person, and it actually does not translate as ye have heard the Antichrist. Ye have heard of the spirit of Antichrist. No, it says you have heard of the spirit of Antichrist. The spirit of the Antichrist, I should say. You've heard of the spirit of the Antichrist. The Antichrist. Not Antichrist, just the Antichrist. Not Antichrist. It's a particular article in the Greek that means it's referring to a specific person, a specific somebody, not in a system, although there will be a system in place, an Antichrist system, but that is not the Antichrist. There will be a certain system of kings in place, but that is not the Antichrist. They are the kings, 10 kings. And then there is also another little horn. That is the false prophet. The false prophet, not just false prophets or a false prophet. It is referring to a false prophet who says he's of God, probably the Pope. I would not say he's the Antichrist. Probably a Pope. I'm not too sure what Pope, but a Pope. Probably put in place by the Antichrist. I would not personally say it's Benedict. Pope Francis. Sorry. I'm sorry, my head's marked up. It's not Pope Francis. I don't believe. I believe that he could be, but I don't necessarily believe he is, because Malachi talks of the death of the papacy. 142 popes. Possibly 112 popes. 112 popes go forward, and then the papacy is broken. And what I believe is when we put it in place, or it could just be that there's only 112 popes, and the Pope is the 112th Pope, which would be Pope Francis, would be the false prophet, which he has to come saying that he is a prophet of Jesus, right? And this Antichrist is going to say, I am Jesus, or I'm in place of Jesus. I am a Messiah type person. I don't believe necessarily they're going to say I'm Christ, but I do believe they're going to say I am, say, Mahdi, or Mahdi, it's actually pronounced, but Mahdi, and that is the Christ-like figure of Islam, by the way. And he's going to say, I'm the Mahdi, and you all need to follow me, or you're going to be killed and beheaded. And I do believe it's going to. I will teach you all this. Or not teach you. I think that's a harsh word because I'm not a teacher. I will study this with you guys. I will show you this in the Bible. Let me study it, and I'll show you a little bit more in depth. But thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you next time. And until then, stay safe, guys. I mean.